I'm Stephen Foskett, the organizer of Tech Field Day, and we're here in Santa Clara, California for Tech Field Day, November 2016. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Field Day and what we're doing here, I urge you to come to techfieldday.com. You can find a series of videos just like this at youtube.com/techfieldday. This event brings together a panel of a dozen independent writers and speakers from around the world to meet with interesting enterprise IT technology companies to discuss technologies, to learn about things, to show demos, and to share things with the world. Thanks for watching.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sai Mukundan. I'm the product management team at Cohesity. And today I'm going to be talking about how Cohesity integrates with VMware vRealize to provide automation for VMware infrastructure. So there are basically three aspects of the integration that I'm going to showcase. And bear in mind, this is just giving you a flavor of what integration possibilities exist through the APIs that Cohesity has. There are other workflows that can be developed with all the APIs that we have. The three aspects that I'm going to showcase are, first, we'll go through the deployment of a VM and tie it in with Cohesity data protection, right? So enterprises go through a lot of VM deployments on a regular basis, and the idea with vRealize is that these can be standardized using blueprints. And we have seen blueprints used with primary storage, wherein they can associate, let's say, the disk type, the IOPS, the latency. In a similar vein, we can associate Cohesity data protection policies with the blueprint. So this screen must be very familiar with you now. So back to the Cohesity dashboard, what I want to run through is set some context for you before I go through the vRealize and VRO orchestration. The first thing that I want to call out your attention to is the two jobs that exist on Cohesity, job 1 and job 2. If you go and look at each of these jobs, you will see that today they're protecting one VM from each of these vCenters. So in this case, we have a VM QA business job 1 associated with the vCenter on the QA cluster. And similarly, we have the vRealize job 2, which is also protecting a single VM in this case. So the next step that we will go through as part of a VM deployment is see how we can do it from VRA. So here you can see that we have a Cohesity blueprint on VRA. In this case, I'm basically just deploying a simple Linux image. And when I request a deployment of such a VM, that's where the magic happens, right? The integration between Cohesity and vRealize. So as I go through this deployment, what you will notice is behind the scenes, the vRealize automation through the orchestrator engine in the back end automatically pulls the Cohesity data protection jobs that exist on the cluster that we just saw. So here you can see that we automatically see the vRealize job 1 and the job 2. So in this case, what I'm going to do is associate the deployment of this VM with one of these jobs. And bear in mind, if you recall from Damien's presentation, each job is associated with a protection policy, right? So really, we are tightly integrating with VMware's SPBM, or Storage Policy-Based Management Framework, and leveraging it for data protection needs. While that VM is deploying, if you go ahead and look at what VRO is doing, it's basically registering the Cohesity as a VRO REST endpoint. It is also using the Cohesity APIs to detect the protection jobs that exist. So a get API call automatically is the one pulling up those jobs that you saw when we had the blueprint. So there you can see the job names coming through. And then once that VM is deployed, using the VM name, we are then going back and adding the VM into that protection job that we so desire. Essentially, it's a policy that we decide is what needs to be applied to this particular VM deployment. You will also see on the left here that there are other workflows. So VMware has the concept of day 1 deployment, which is when you go ahead and deploy something. There are also day 2 elements, things that you might need to change over time. In this case, you might want to move it from an existing job, which is a policy that you associate it with to a new job. Perhaps the importance of that VM has changed over its life cycle. And then eventually you probably destroy the VM, and then there is a separate workflow for that to go ahead and remove it from the Cohesity job. So if we come back here and look at the deployment of this VM, right now you will see that job 1 has this additional VM that shows up. You can see the QA Business 172 VM that just got deployed by VRA, and it automatically now shows up as a VM that is protected by Cohesity, right? So that completes your day 1 deployment of the VM. Now moving to the day 2 operations. The first one that we are going to look at is maybe we want to go ahead and change the policy. So here, when you go back into vRealize, because of the integration, you will now see an option that says move to a new protection job. And when we pick that, what this does is it figures out what is the Cohesity policy that is protecting this VM, and then provides you a drop-down menu of all the other options available for you. In this case, what we will be looking at are the 3 jobs that exist on the Cohesity cluster, right? So the reason for doing this again is you might want to change the policy. Perhaps it was a 12-hour protection that you started with, and then once this VM went in production, you now need a tighter SLA on it. So in this case, we know that it was protected by job 1, and we now move it into job 2. So if we go back into the Cohesity cluster, what we will see is, again, job 1 reverts back to the 1 VM that it started with, because we deployed it and associated with job 1 first, and now we have successfully moved that VM into a different protection policy, which is job 2. And that's what you will see coming up when we look at what the VMs that each job is protecting. So again, you have job 2 that's now protecting this VM, which was previously under job 1, because we have successfully executed a move. Is there a question over there?
Yeah, is there a package available that can be downloaded for VRO to do this, or?
Absolutely. So we have released a package which basically provides this integration, and there are other workflows as well that we are looking to include as part of that package.
And can you do this across multiple vCenters? Because I noticed in the VRO script it looked like it's getting the VM name. You have the same name in 2 different vCenters?
Yeah, so those are optimizations that can be done. In this case, we are basically, just for the demo purpose, presenting a very simple use case that we can walk through. So the last aspect, obviously, in the life of a VM is you destroy it, right? You've gone through, used it, and now you want to destroy it. Again, when we look at the VMs, we have associated using the APIs, to Eric's point, with VRO. You now also destroy it not only on the vCenter, but it should also get correspondingly removed from the Cohesity job that was protecting this VM. So again, when we execute this workflow and go ahead and destroy this VM, what we will now see is the VM has been removed from vCenter, but it has also now been removed from the Cohesity job associated with it. So it was earlier in job 2 as a result of the move that we performed. And again, when we look at job 2, we are now back to the single VM scenario that it's protecting.
And if you delete the VM from the job, does that remove the backups? Or do the backups stay around, it just doesn't get protected anymore?
So so because we have different APIs that provide those options, it really boils down to what API is called for that particular delete process. You could choose to retain the older snapshots if you wish to do so, but if you completely want everything destroyed, again, it just depends on what API you leverage for that purpose. Okay. So again, we talked about 3 things, and as part of this demo, the first thing we went through was we deployed a VM and associated with a Cohesity protection job, and this was all done through the vRealize. The second thing that we covered was we decided that as a part of day 2 operations, the VM needs to have a different protection policy associated with it. So that's what we executed. And the third workflow was we destroyed the VM and removed it both from the vCenter as well as from the Cohesity protection job. Again, this is just giving you a flavor of the integration possibilities. There are much more day one and day two elements that you potentially build based on this, just the rich set of APIs that we have.
Do you have any API Explorer or anything so you can start building these on your own?
Absolutely. So if you when you had the cluster, I don't have a live cluster here, but maybe Chinmay can just give you a sneak preview when he comes on next. Along with the documentation that you can access from our cluster, there's also a drop down to look at the REST APIs, and it also has an explorer where you can run the commands and look at what the output is, and even take that and use it in your scripts.
Okay.